It was a turning point in our relationship, our first real argument. The first make it or break it kind of thing for the two of us. Now you might think that we would have argued about religion or kids or politics or money or something like that. Trust me, we eventually got around to arguing about those things and having serious discussions, but our very first fight was about something really important. Toilet paper. We were in the very early stages of our relationship. In fact, that was the day we were moving in together. We had not yet had a commitment ceremony, but we were spending all of our time together. I had just moved into his house, and he had run to run some errands. I was being helpful, or at least polite, I thought. My mother had always taught me, if you use the last one, replace it. No matter what it was, you never left that need to the next person. So I had replaced the toilet paper roll. Hans came home and gave me a kiss on the cheek and went into the bathroom, and the next words I heard yelling from inside the bathroom were, "No, no, this is all wrong." He came out with a roll of toilet paper in his hands and said, "There is only one way to hang a roll of toilet paper, and you clearly do not know what that is." Evidently, at age 55, I knew nothing about toilet paper or anything else, it seemed like, for a while. I had learned nothing. How nice it was to be reminded. Now, I'm sure some of you have had this predicament also. Which way does the roll hang? Does the end go over the top of the roll, or does it come from the bottom? Actually, Hans will be here visiting next week, and we'll laugh again like crazy over this, because he'll go into my bathroom when he gets here and change the toilet paper roll, because it's our personal long-term joke. But at the time, it wasn't very funny. It doesn't feel so good when somebody challenges the rituals and habits that you've learned growing up, and now as an adult. Know that these things are true and right ways of the world. Things like folding towels, whether you put the detergent in before you add the clothes or after. Or, of course, how the toilet paper hangs. We discussed those things too, by the way, lots of times. One thing I did learn in the midst of all of these heart-to-heart chats is that there comes a point when I need to make a choice. Am I going to dig my heels in and insist on my way? Or am I willing to open myself up and possibly discover, at the risk of embarrassment, maybe that there might be even a better way to get the job done? That's the scenario that Jesus is faced with today. Before we get into his dilemma, though, a little backstory. In case you've forgotten, Jesus is a Jew. That's a pretty important thing to remember here, because Jews are the chosen ones of God. God told them so over and over and over again. Growing up, Jesus would have heard the stories of his ancestors, the promises made to them, their struggles and the blessing God gave them through Abraham and Isaac and on down through Joseph and Moses. Jesus would have known beyond a shadow of a doubt that he was special. And not because he was the Son of God or the Messiah or the Promised One or anything like that. No, he would have known he was special and chosen simply because he was a Jew. He was handpicked, beloved. Story after story after story, at home and at school and in the synagogue and at the temple, would drive the message home. The Jews were it. And if Jesus grew up knowing in his heart and soul that the Jews were it, he would have also known that the Gentiles were not. They were pagans, unclean. People who were to be avoided and left alone. Not because they were poor or diseased, or at least they weren't any more poor or diseased than the next person, but these people were icky simply because they didn't follow the law. They broke the hundreds of sacred laws in the Torah all the time. Every day, actually. They ate the wrong foods, wore the wrong clothes. Heck, they probably even hung their toilet paper the wrong way. In any case, the point would have been loud and clear to Jesus. Non-Jews were no good. Period. With that in mind, let's wander into today's story. Here we find Jesus on a much-needed vacation. Right before today's events, he had been quite busy teaching, preaching, arguing, and performing miracles. For example, he managed to feed thousands of people with just a few loaves of bread and a few fish. Shortly after that, he found himself in the middle of a hot debate with the Pharisees about the definition of clean and unclean. Basically, Jesus was pointing out that all of the rules that the Pharisees insisted on following were getting in the way of letting them really follow God's command. All of that work being on all the time had taken its toll. Jesus was exhausted. He needed some time to recharge, breathe, collect his thoughts, and get ready for whatever would be the next big thing coming his way. And you could bet that something good was indeed headed his way. To do that, though, he needed to get some time off, and was going to be a challenge. First, he would have to find a place where no one would recognize him, and where he was sure to be left alone. That wouldn't be easy. People seemed to find him everywhere he went. So the only place he could think of was really quite unremarkable. Tyre. Gentile territory. Pagan country. Not necessarily ideal, but at least he could pretty much guarantee that there wouldn't be any Jews there bugging him for a favor or a hot debate. It would be darn near perfect. And it was. Darn near, anyway. One thing that Jesus hadn't counted on was the fact that the word about him was spreading all throughout the area, to Jews and non-Jews alike. So imagine his surprise when in the middle of a house, in the middle of foreign territory, in the middle of his vacation, a woman barges in asking for help. A woman, of all people. Here's something else you might want to remember about the culture of that day. Women were nobodies. Less than nobodies, even. They were not supposed to speak, especially in public, especially not to men in public. To do that meant severe punishment, anywhere from a public flogging to being cut off from their families, destined to beg in the streets the rest of their days. And yet that didn't seem to stop this woman. She barges into the house and bows at Jesus' feet and starts asking, pleading really, for help. Her child was sick, unclean, she says. She had heard about Jesus and what he can do. Would he please, please, please help her out? Well, Jesus isn't very Jesus-y in his initial response to her. Granted, he does acknowledge her presence, something he didn't need to do. He could have ignored her and had her arrested. Instead, he speaks to her and says something like, hey, who do you think you are barging in here like this? I'm here for the children of Israel. They get first dibs on grace and miracles and stuff like that. You're a dog. Go away and leave me alone. Oh, Jesus, that's not so cool. Whether you're having a bad day or not, that behavior just isn't right. His lack of coolness does not faze her at all, though, or at least she doesn't let it show if it does. She comes right back at him with this, hey buddy, call me whatever you want. I know I'm not a Jew and I'm not chosen or special or anything like that. But I also know that you can do something about this situation. I've heard about you. And if what I've heard is true, you don't really believe that Jews are the only ones worthy of your time and effort. Or at least that's what you've been saying. Even us dogs are worthy of a little something, right? Ooh, snap, she got him. And she knew it. Jesus knew it too. He knows that what she says is the truth. He's been saying the same thing for quite a while now. He gave the disciples a little lesson on abundance with the loaves and fishes thing. Scarcity isn't an issue. There's plenty to go around. He believes that's true. And then he had the verbal sparring match with the Pharisees, where they argued in favor of all their hundreds of rules. And Jesus countered with the argument that of all the laws about things that are clean and unclean, and all of the habits and rituals they stick to, just because that's the way it's always been done, is actually getting in the way of serving God and living a complete life. He believes that's true also. So now, he has a decision to make. Does he save face, dig in his heels, and open up to the possibility, maybe even at the risk of embarrassment, that maybe, just maybe, he's made a mistake and there might be another way? Remember, he has every right to ignore her, every right to have her arrested and punished, every right to get back to his vacation and his life. No one would have thought a thing about it if he would have just put her in her place and laughed the whole thing off. People would have supported him in that action. Actually, that's the way things are done, you know. But he didn't. Instead, Jesus stopped, listened, opened up and let an unclean, Syrophoenician pagan, icky, annoying, pain-in-the-behind woman remind him who he was and what he was really there for, to bring healing, wholeness, and life to everyone. Everyone. Regardless of traditions or rules or any of that, he was here for everyone. Wow, what a moment right there. A monumental moment. A pivotal, transformative, life-changing, life-giving moment. It's stories like this one that make me want to follow this guy. It's stories like this that make me want to be a Christian. Jesus is human. Sure, he is God. He does stuff like sticking his fingers in people's ears and making them hear again. He makes people whole in ways they never imagined. But he is human also. He screws up. He makes mistakes. And because of that, I find it easier to try to be more like him. Let's face it, if all Jesus did as God incarnate was float around 6 inches off the ground with a glow and a heavenly aura and talk in big words above our heads while an angel choir sang in the background, the whole Christian thing would be a little hard to swallow. Unattainable. I could never be like that Jesus, so why try? But this Jesus, the guy we meet in today's story, I have some hope that I can do that. I have some hope that we can all do that. Not just the screwing up part, we've got that pretty down pat, but more of the learning and growing part. Like Jesus, we can keep opening up to the truth about who we are and what we are here for. After all, we are here for the same reason that Jesus was, to bring healing and wholeness and hope and light into the world in ways big and small. Love God. Love each other. No matter who you are or where you are in life's journey, that is the job we've been given. That is the command. Jesus was right. Sometimes our rules and our habits and our traditions get in the way of doing our job. Our prejudices, our ambitions, our fears, our anxieties, our need to be right. Those things keep us from opening up and living. And really living. Maybe, just maybe, there is another way. Amen. Amen.
Changed my